What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the 182 News Podcast. This is your host, poppincurbs, and today we are joined by very special guest, longtime tech of one of my favorite bands on the planet, Newfoundglory. It's an honor to have on Mr. Brian Ward. Brian, what's happening?
What's up? How you doing?
I am doing just fine. So you and I met a couple months back prior to a Catalyst 20th anniversary show. And I was chatting with you. I really enjoyed the conversation. I finally had to stop bothering you and just step away and let you get back to work. But at that time, I was thinking, man, I gotta have this dude on the podcast. I really enjoyed it. And then I found out you're actually a huge Blink fan. And then I found out you had actually followed the podcast page. So I've been looking forward to this, dude.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah, that show was fun. That was Nashville. I think that was the last show of that first leg. So that
Yep.
show all around was a lot of fun. Yeah, and it was cool to meet and hang. And you weren't bothering me. It's fine. But yeah, we'll get into more. I think I showed you these at the show, but my ears are Blink. I
Yep.
guess we'll come back to that. I have a design in each. But yeah, stoked to be here and chat.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to some Blink, no doubt about it. But before we get there, I want to hear a little bit about just your journey into becoming a tech in general. Is this something that you had wanted to do from an early age? Is this something that you stumbled into playing an instrument or being a gearhead? Like, how did it play out for you?
Yeah, I think it's really more of the latter. So a buddy of mine from high school, we were just like gear junkies. I mean, all the same things we do now, but we had less money, less responsibilities then. Now we have more money and way more responsibilities, so less money, I guess. But we would always be, trading gear and buying gear and selling gear and whatever. And then I played in a band, so I used to play in a metalcore band called If Hope Dies, and we so they started before me. It's all my friends. They're a few years older than I am, but they started, and then when they were really getting to the point of touring, I was finishing college, and I hopped on with them and was playing guitar. That band was signed to a label that was owned by Trevor, who was the singer of Unearth. And that's
Mm,
kind of where all this really started. So Trevor was a big supporter of the band, and they were really good friends of ours. And then when we started to slow down, I reached out to Unearth and I was like, hey, take me out for a week. Let me tech, whatever. So that's truly where all this started. Their guitar tech at the time, Grizz, was stepping away for like a week while they were on Ozfest to take care of some stuff at home. And I'm on the East Coast, so I just said, "Let me hop on." Cool, hopped on the bus, good to go. I literally worked for, I don't know, like 10-15 bucks a day. I just wanted the experience. So my first experience teching was Ozfest. Yeah. No, it gets so much better. So
no
that was
pressure.
Ozfest 2000. Yeah, it was like 2005, 2006, something like that. I'd have to look back. But so that was my first thing. So that was a week that went well. And then that next January, they called me and they're like, hey, do you want to come out with us full time? And that was a tour supporting Slayer. So I
Oh my
was like,
God.
so I was 19 years old, and it was like, hey, we're touring with Slayer, and we get 15 minutes to get off the stage. And if you're off in 16, you're off the fucking tour. Goodbye.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. So my first real legitimate tour teching was supporting Slayer. And it was a,
Jeez, dude.
yeah. Yeah.
How on
So
earth did you have any confidence going into that? I mean, did you just know the gear that well already?
yeah, I mean, I knew like my gear because even when I was playing in that band, dude, it was like a new amp every month. It was like, new toys all the time. Um, and I was, comfortable enough in that world, but then I had guys on the crew that really would pick up the slack. Like if there was something I didn't know or whatever. And that's honestly all the best crews I've worked on. Nobody cares what you know and what you don't know, to the point of if you're a hard worker and you have an understanding and can grasp concepts. Like nobody is going to roast me if I can't figure out how to like remove a truss rod and put a new one in 4 hours before the show starts. Or like Ian on this last tour, he wanted those glow in the dark side dots, for his fret markers. So I did those over a couple days before they played. And like usually I would do that at home in my shop and like take the time. And this was just on the road working with what I had. So my point in that is, great crew members kind of help the team all get it done. So I had good support, and those folks who I, worked on the crew with took me to all these other roles. That's honestly how I met Newfound. It was just, networking, and the guy that did sound for Unearth on that tour brought me over to Coheed, and then he went to Newfound for a minute. He brought me to Newfound, and then there's been a lot of other stuff along the way that's just been networking and just putting myself out there.
Yeah, that's a pretty big show to debut with. Did you have any early hiccups or mess ups along the way?
Oh God, early. I had some on the last leg. Um, yeah, I mean, there's always things. There's like I remember the biggest thing that stuck out is on Ozfest. Every single show Ken smashed a guitar, so Ibanez sent him a bunch of guitars, and you'd have to set up from scratch a new guitar every single day.
Mm,
And I remember one day that didn't happen and it didn't stay in tune. And I was, it was like the last 30 seconds of the song, but even so, and it got smashed, 45 seconds later. So whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's hiccups like that. There's, gear goes out. There was a time in Newfound as well where it was right before we replaced a bunch of gear. There was just stuff that was starting to fail. Like you could tell it was time for some new stuff. So there's always hiccups. It's if other people can recognize your hiccups. That's really the question.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. As far as like bands you had worked with early on, I mean, it sounds like Unearth, Coheed and Cambria. Was there anybody else prior to Newfound Glory?
Yeah. I did Behemoth, which was a lot of fun. For those that don't know, they're a satanic black metal band from Poland. They wear the panda bear makeup and everything. The sweetest guys on the planet, like just so kind. I did Darkest Hour. I did Amon Amarth. What else have I done? I've filled in for Dropkick a bunch, but that was after Newfound. So there's been a bunch of like little random stuff here and there. Yeah.
Gotcha. You hit the ground running pretty early with Tech Life, it sounds like. Is that something that right away you knew you wanted to keep doing and pursuing? Like, what was it about it that you loved?
Yeah, I think I really loved contributing to the show. Like I like playing shows just fine and it's fun and it's cool. But I think that I really enjoyed contributing to a show on a bigger level. That's what was really attractive to me.
Gotcha. As far as your start with Newfound Glory, when exactly was that? I was trying to think back. Is this like '09, 2010-ish or something?
It was earlier. It was, I believe the first show was August 2000, August 2008.
Okay.
So my first tour with them was when we met 4 Year Strong and all those guys. Um, and I think my very first tour with them was the fall of 2008. And actually, I know it was 2008 because we all had to get a tour tattoo, and everybody. So I don't have very many tattoos. I like them, but for me, I'm too much of a baby. So anyway, had to get a tour tattoo. There's this dude Chauncey who was out with Day to Remember, who were one of the openers, and everybody was picking on Jordan, as we do. And we nicknamed the tour the Hurting Hearts Tour because you'd always hurt Jordan's heart. So we all got this little tattoo, and I like didn't want to get it. And Ian one day at Soundcheck was like, "Get your fucking ass down there in the basement of this dirty venue." And I hung my knee over the side of a couch, and I got zapped for like 5 minutes. So that was 2008. So that's really when I started with them. I did one-off with them before that tour. It was like college show or something, and then 2008 from there on.
Ian's philosophy on tattoos just cracks me up. He says the worse they are, the better.
Yes, yes. Well,
Which
it's funny too because he'll get the ridiculous ones, but then he'll get like I remember when his kids who are almost grown now would like do little doodles and stuff, and they'd go on his pics, but then he'd also get them tattooed. So that was really fun. But yeah, the more ridiculous for him, the better for sure.
so 2008, that's probably right around the time of like Not Without a Fight, I
Yes,
think,
that's
as
the
far as
album
that
cycle.
goes.
That's the
Okay.
album cycle that I started on. Yep.
Were
And like
you
me being a Blink fan, like Mark working on that record, I was stoked.
Did you or do you typically join them in the studio at all or get a chance to?
I haven't, I was going to when they when they just did the acoustic record, so Make the Most of It, which was a couple of years ago now. I was going to go down there and I didn't, but half of that record was the live stream that we did in 2021. But maybe maybe next time they record, I don't know exactly what their plans are, but they're not ones to slow down. So I would think in the next year or so they'll probably start working on something. So I may fly down there then.
Yeah. Were you fans of them prior to even working with them?
Yeah, and that's a dangerous thing too, because they always say don't meet your heroes, you know. And I remember one of the first things Ian asked me, like, because I started with them and they asked if I was a fan of the band. I said yes. And Ian's like, hey, who's your favorite member? Um, and it was actually him because he always played without a shirt on, and I'm a fat guy too. So I was like, oh, cool, you can be fat and cool. So yeah, but no, I was a fan, and actually the first time I saw them was on that Blink tour. So I live in Syracuse and they came through, and that was the first time that I saw them and the first time I saw Blink. And I got into, I think, probably all of them right around the same time, but it was like with Newfound, I wasn't a super early adopter. It was like self-titled. Self-titled is where I kind of picked up and ran with it as a
I
fan.
gotcha. And did you start with bass and guitars or just Ian?
Yeah, I was doing bass and guitar initially, and then I've kind of done everything through the years. Now I'm doing bass and drums, so I'm helping Cyrus, and then still doing Ian stuff. I've done obviously Chad's guitars in the past. I've bounced all over the place, really wherever they need me.
Gotcha. As far as like a day in the life of a guitar tech, like let's just focus, I guess, on say Ian's setup for a typical day on this last tour. I'm always curious, genuinely behind the scenes, like what does your typical day look like? What time are you starting? What's the highlights? What's the boring parts? Like if you can walk us through or shed some light on that, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say it's obviously going to vary based on the camp and based on the production for the tour, but for Ian specifically, we usually start to load in around say like 10 a.m., something like that. We get a few hours before sound check to kind of get everything up and running, but let's say we tip the truck at 10 a.m. So the very first thing I want to get done is get the drum riser set because that's going to help with lighting, with production, all the stage stuff that's happening. Get the drum riser up. From there, throw up drums, at least get it rough, and then I can move on to Ian's 8 basses. He would probably have 80 if we could.
I bet.
Yeah. So with his basses, I typically change strings every day, sometimes every other. Kind of depends on what's going on. I always like him to sound fresh and sound good. I love Ernie Ball specifically. He's been playing those strings for a few years now, but I love how bright they are when they're brand new. So I try to give him freshies every day. Sometimes it's every other day. But it's really getting my world set up. So I'm off of stage right, and similar to what you saw, I have the guitar vault there, or the bass vault rather. So that has 8 basses in it. Then I have a workbox for the bass. I have a workbox for the drums, and then I have Ian's rig right there with me. So he's on a Kemper right now, and I'll have that right in front of me. So if I need to change tones for anything, he doesn't bother with foot switches, any of that. So for a couple songs like I Don't Want to Know off Catalyst, we go to a cleaner bass tone. So I'm the one actually doing that change. So that's everything is right there. If anything goes wrong, I have everything kind of at my fingertips. So, I mean, from there, it's pretty straightforward. I am changing strings, getting basses ready. I'm charging up, batteries for the body packs. I'm making sure that all the frequencies are clean, and then working with, Max does front of house for us, and he helps with monitors. So, like making sure that the channels for the ears are clean and the body packs are good to go, and everybody's ears are ready. So when they walk in at say like 2:30, we've done a line check. We verified everything's working, everything's dialed in. They can just walk up, play some songs, and then we have some of our downtime. So that's probably like 3:30-ish or so. They tend to be done. We'll usually have a quick sound check for the meet and greets. So we have, the acoustic meet and greets, and they'll bring in fans and chit chat and play like usually 3 songs. So we'll have that time just to check those lines, make sure everything is good, get everything set up, and then we'll, cover up all of our stuff. So cover up the drums, cover up all the set pieces. We'll bring the support bands in so they can do a sound check. And then usually after that, we'll do the meet and greet, and then we'll have a few hours downtime until the show. So the really nice thing with Ian, he is very low maintenance, and Cyrus is too, honestly. They're both low maintenance. So we keep things pretty dialed, and we usually have it done within a couple hours and then have the bulk of the day just to hang out, grab food, see friends, bullshit around, have Ian bring his friends up and give him one of every pick. I think he had 20 designs on the Catalyst tour. So, he'll usually come when he has guests, like same as when you came out. Like he will usually have guests, and I'll bring him over and he'll open up the workbox and he'll go to the giant bag of picks, and then I'll get one of each design and he'll give them out. So that's been a passion of his for a very long time.
Yeah. Whenever he came on the podcast, he was like, I'll send you some picks. And I'm thinking I'm going to get like 4 or 5. Dude, it was like a fucking gallon bag of Ziploc.
Dude, I have, you know what? I should have grabbed him. I have him in the other room. I'll maybe grab him in a bit here to show you how many I have from over the years. And I don't even have every single one. Like, I'm not really a pick collector. I am because, just he got me into it. I have just a ridiculous amount of newfound picks. It was like unbelievable.
And he remembers every single detail about every one. He knows how many were made, like who got them, when he gave them out. It's crazy. It's pretty cool though. I mean, I made a couple for him on that last stretch that he used, I think. So that's always fun. So it sounds like after sound check, that's when you get a little bit of a break to grab some food or chill for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then what? When doors, I mean, are you good up until Newfound's getting ready to take the stage, or when doors open, you're back at the saddle?
No, I'm honestly, again, like I said, it's so dialed right now that I'm good until maybe 20 minutes before set change. So, well, honestly, even 10 minutes before set change. So, like the last 10 minutes before our changeover happens, I'll just go and make sure everything's tuned up, like make sure his basses are tuned, make sure I also, on this last run, did a little bit of keys, like running intros and playing secondary keys on a couple songs, things like that. So I'll make sure all that's working, but we are a well-oiled machine. So I will show up 10 minutes before changeover, do a couple things, and then just get ready to go.
When the band takes the stage, do you get nervous, or is this when you're locked in? This is go time for you. How do you feel about it?
Listen, everybody is always nervous. Yeah. For me, it's now I'm going to tell everybody my secret. I do the, I forget what they call it. The box breathing. Do you know about this?
No.
You breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, let it out for 5 seconds, and then you hold it for 5 seconds. So you go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then keep doing that. It's just like, I think it's something that the military uses to like chill out, like in the moment. I don't know. I heard it from somebody, but I'll do that. So I'll just take a second to like chill myself out, make it mellow. I mean, our shows are fun. They're high energy. They're not terribly dramatic. So it's not like I'm scared of anything, but you still like, get that excitement. And then things like, dude, when we were young, they were very well dialed. It was smooth, but it's still freaking crazy. Like this year we were on the rotating stage. So while Bayside were playing, we were set up in sound checking on the other side of the stage. And then they go, okay, here you go. And they start to turn the stage. And you're like, shit, hope everything's good. So, so I'll kind of have some rituals just to chill myself out so everything's mellow. Because here's the thing. If I'm jittery and weird and like freaking out, and I definitely have had my moments in the past, but like when you're like that, like then everybody else is freaking out and it's weird. When you're just loosey goosey mellow, everybody's cool.
Yeah. But that's cool that it still feels like a bit of excitement and a rush.
Well,
like, even you've been doing it all these years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important, right? I mean, there are, it sounds maybe silly to some, but there are some people where it's like their 40th show or their 200th show, or somebody where it's their first show and you don't want it to suck. So,
Yeah.
that's important. So I don't get super in my head, but there's still kind of that, that energy of the show is about to take off. And then once you're a few songs in and everything is feeling good, then you can kind of chill out a little. But it's the first couple songs that are so high energy. You want to make sure that it kind of starts with a bang.
Is that the best part of the day for you when the show's going and you look out at the crowd and people are just having the best night ever?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet from a fulfillment aspect, man, like that's tough to beat. I talk about that a lot, man. Like just live music and seeing your favorite bands play your favorite songs live, like there's nothing like it. Synced up in a room with just the same type of folks who dig that music. It's the best.
Yeah, and it's when the crowd is really going off, that's obviously awesome. Or like when we played Stone Pony on that first leg, there's like 4,000 people there. It was outside. Everybody was going nuts. It was a great show. When We Were Young is awesome. Riot Fest is always amazing. So all shows are good, but and it's not even necessarily the size of the audience. Like that's always fun and impressive. But even the smaller shows where everybody is just going absolutely nuts, it's always fun.
Yeah. Once the show wraps, you're up on stage already starting to tear stuff down. I mean, how long does that process take? How long until you're back on the bus heading to the next city?
So our loadout is about 45 minutes from last note to truck closed.
Wow.
So yeah, we hammer through. So about 45 minutes we're tore down, everything is in the truck, and then it's where's my after show food and where are the shower towels. So it's good because in the past I've had to well, that's where I started eating pizza in the shower and then also eating cheeseburgers in the shower because
Oh my God.
sometimes the bus call is really soon and you can either shower or you can eat after show food. So I think Toad's Place in Connecticut was the first place where I ate pizza in the shower. Life
Oh my
changing.
gosh.
Dude, life changing event. It was the best.
That's hilarious. I've heard beers in the shower. I've never heard pizza.
I'm straight edge, so I've never had a beer, but I actually recently did. So I think you know this. I don't know. I'm a huge Coke Zero fanatic.
Okay.
That came from Cyrus. So I'd never heard of it. And then when I first started working for them, Cyrus was always drinking Coke Zero. And now I'm hooked on the junk. But so I had a soda shower or a shower soda recently. It's pretty awesome. Now I get why shower beers. Yeah, like shower soda is pretty sick.
So after the show, you're jumping on the bus. Are you able to sleep well on the bus? Do you truly wake up in the next city ready to do the same thing again?
Yeah, because it rocks me like a baby to sleep. Totally. Yeah. Sleeping on the bus when it's not moving is really difficult. But once the bus starts moving, all of the air is going. Usually there's like one air system going. Once the bus starts up, the second one goes, and then you start driving. And as long as the driver is smooth, like, yeah, you fall asleep in one city and wake up in the next. Totally.
That's one of the things that I had never thought about until I interviewed, I want to say Tom's tour manager, Jeff.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how important the bus driver is. And that's something I had never thought about until I had
Dude.
this podcast.
Yeah, we have had and not that it matters so much. I'm not going to put anybody on blast, but we've had some drivers who were like just terrible, just really bad. And then you sleep like shit. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just, and we've had some really awesome ones. And then, but yeah, no, the bus driver actually makes a really big difference.
As far as I guess tour life goes and that balance with home life or whatever, is that something that when you're out on the road, like you're looking forward to it, stoked to get out? Is it something that as we get older, it becomes harder just to be away from home or family or whatever? Like, how does it feel for you?
Yeah, so I really have to flip a switch. So I have kids, and actually I took a few years off from touring because I had kids and they were really small, and it's never fun to leave. And now they're to the point I have one teenager and one preteen, and they will give me a little bit of grief, but they love coming to the show and it's whatever else. Honestly, when I'm out, I've got to flip a switch. Like I obviously stay in touch with them. I talk to them every day, but like I can't be sad that I'm gone. It makes it worse. So it's really fun to go out with those guys, and I've known them for 16-ish years now, something like that. So we always have a good time, but you kind of have to separate it, if that makes sense. And then equally, like when I'm home, I'm so damn busy with dance and marching band and like all these other things. We did like a Christmas event last night. So when I'm home and I'm busy as hell. And when I'm on tour, like I'm on tour, kind of leave me alone, you know?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
yeah.
As far as Ian goes, let's talk about him a little bit. You mentioned it earlier, 8 basses out on stage. I feel like he changes every other song. What's it like working with Ian?
Oh, so much fun. So much fun. Well, we've been so close for so many years, so that's a big part of it. But I also egg it on. I mean, if I had my choice, we would probably bring 10 to 16 bases. I've been campaigning this for a few years now. I want him to change every single song. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be really fun. So originally why we started that though, the real reason why he has so many bases out there is when I first started working with him, he never wore a shirt, which is very iconic. And we were actually playing smaller rooms. So the Not Without a Fight album cycle, we were in pretty small rooms. There were a lot of shows that were 300 to 500 cap.
Mm.
Um, and he would just sweat out pickups. Like legitimately, his bass would die mid set. So that's where the switching every block started. And now he doesn't sweat as much. He plays with a shirt on. But he still has some preferences, but he's addicted to basses, dude. Let's just call it how it is. He's totally addicted. He has the 8. I have a new bass vault being delivered for him this week. But he is yeah, he's totally addicted to basses. He loves them. They're a huge passion of his. But we have the 8 in the vault, and then he probably has another 8 in storage and probably close to another 20 at home, something
He
like that.
he has so many bases. Like I've seen his
Yeah.
closet at his house, and it's just
Yeah.
cases. I'm like, dude, how do you even keep track of all these?
Yeah. Well, because they all have names. Yeah, they're all named. He knows all of them. Yep.
They're his babies. Yeah, Ian's just
Yeah.
the nicest dude ever, man. Like I'm so grateful that he took a chance on me, came on the podcast a couple years ago, didn't have to. And since
Yep.
then, man, like I talk to him every day. Like I consider him one of my best friends.
Yeah. And I feel bad too because when we're home, he has a ton of free time and I have like none. So he'll text me. Sometimes it'll take me forever to get back to him. And I texted him the other day. We also have a chat with Alan Corona in there. So I actually hate group chats, but I stick with those because I love those guys. But so we'll chit chat here and there. But yeah, no, he's so sweet. And I guess one of the stories to best describe the duality of King Dula is what happened on my first tour with them. So, first tour, we were in pre-production. We were still in Los Angeles at the time, and we were rehearsing at Third Encore. And I was making heads or tails of his rig and getting basses ready. And they're all like, "Hey, we're gonna go to lunch. You want to come with us?" And I was like, "No, I've got to get this stuff done. Could you pick something up for me?" Yeah, cool, no problem at all. So when they come back, he gives me my food and my card, and he says, "Here, I got your food, and thanks, you also paid for all of ours." So I unknowingly paid for everybody's lunch that day. But then on the other side of the coin, just a few weeks later, after I hadn't known him that long, he gifted me a bass
Oh man.
and I still have it. So yeah, that's one of those like he will bust your balls and he'll be a goofball and he'll be really fun, but then he'll be ridiculously sweet. Um, but he's just, I could honestly say for those guys, they are just genuine. Like
Yeah.
I mentioned before, like don't meet your heroes. I've worked for some folks that bum me out. And that's not to call out like anyone and that's not newfound. I sincerely love all of them, but there's been some opportunities where I've been really bummed and like, okay, I'm not doing this again. And then 16 years later, I'm still with these guys out there, playing shows. So
Yeah, that was one of my takeaways when I was kicking it with you guys. I'm like, everybody's just so chill and nice. Like you don't feel any like weird energy. Like I've been in the back of some gigs where I'm like, man, this is just a weird backstage dynamic, or
yeah,
there's managers and handlers running around. It just seems weird. And I'm like, Newfound does not seem like that at all.
no, not at all. And it's always one bus. Like, it's not like At some level, band has to travel separately, based on the size of whatever. But like, it's always been one bus. I did work for a band in the past that was band bus and crew bus, and we rarely heard from the band. So it's just different dynamics. But with them, no, everybody just kind of wants to play shows and have fun. Everybody's missing their kids. Everybody wants to be home, but equally wants to be on tour. It's like, if we could have 3 more buses with all the families, that would be, ideal. But no, everybody's cool. It's a pretty relaxed environment.
Yeah. I know it's always such a weird balance where it's like, yes, you're away from your family for a couple months, but on the flip side, for a lot of bands, you also get months off that most folks can't do. So I don't know, man. It's kind of a weird thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean it's cool. It sucks missing the stuff. Like we did our last show for 2024 in Arizona last week, and I missed like a band concert. So that sucks. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's cool to be out. It's fun. I definitely count my blessings every day for sure.
Ian does not give himself enough credit for playing
No,
bass. He acts like he's terrible. I'm like, dude, you're ripping, man.
dude, yeah, that's we've had this conversation so many times. No, I agree. He really is really good. And honestly, like there are so many of his bass lines that are like super iconic, like little licks that are just awesome. But yeah, he'll talk about like how he can only play bass with one finger. Or the other joke is I guess it's not a joke, but he'll just say like when he is playing the songs, all he's thinking the entire time is dot or no dot. So that's part of the reason that for Catalyst too, a lot of the stage was pretty dark. Just kind of the vibe of the show. So that's why I did um the the Lumenlay side dots, but he also doesn't wear his glasses on stage, so they were too small,
Mm.
he couldn't see them. So I ended up having to, and actually, so this is what we call a doula idea. So it's when Ian comes up with some idea that seems so off the wall, but it almost always works incredibly well, better than he'd think. So doula idea, he stole one from Cadaver, who is West Borland's tech. And Cadaver takes glow in the dark tape and uses a hole punch and puts that as side markers for Wes's guitars.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. Ian told me, he's like, dude, I saw Limp Bizkit and Cadaver told me this, whatever. So I went to Tour Supply when we were rehearsing for the first leg, and I picked up some glow in the dark tape, and I had got a hole punch, and I just put them for all the side dots, and they're huge, which is perfect. He can't see because he's not wearing his glasses. And then I just have a little UV flashlight. I charge him up before he goes out. In the new vault, I'm going to put just some strip lighting, some UV strip lighting. And then when I hand him the bass, he sees either giant dot or no dot.
Oh,
So,
man. That's
dot, no
smart.
dot, dot, no dot.
Yeah, shoot me a
Yeah,
picture of that. We'll pop it in right here on the video.
yeah, totally.
One of the things that I just don't think people realize how hard it is for musicians in general. It's one thing to have the talent to play an instrument or write a song. Then it's got to be a good song. Then people got to dig it, but then you got to get up there and perform it, have some sort of stage presence typically, and on top of that, be able to do it in the dark with flashing lights and not able to see anything. I mean, it's really crazy how talented musicians have to be.
Yeah, and I think to some of those points you mentioned, like for people to dig the music and get people to keep coming out, like I have to give them a ton of credit that I was they all have a few years on me. I'm 39, but back when I was a teenager, loving their band, you think of all these pop punk bands or even pop punk adjacent, I suppose, that were going on major labels and doing whatever, and then they did everything the label told them to, and they totally fell off. Newfound never did that. They always paid attention to what their fans liked and wanted, and always really followed that feedback really well. So I think on top of just being fun and like actually caring and listening, like they've stayed true to themselves. And that's a big reason why kids still come out. Well, kids,
Yeah.
we're all elderly at this point. That's why all the elders come out.
But one of the cool things at that last Catalyst show, I thought about it because I was looking at the crowd, and man, there was just multiple generations of folks in the same crowd. It was really cool to see.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think even my own kids, like I have pictures of when my oldest was maybe 6 months old. I took him to his first show because I had to work it, and we drove down. And yeah, I have pictures over the years of them growing up going to the shows. And then you see a lot of kids like that age coming out. And then you see, people maybe that even have like, honestly, that may have like 15 years on you and I that are there.
Yeah.
They were maybe our age now when they got into it. They're still coming out. There are people our age and younger, and then kids. It's super cool. It's fun.
Hey, Ian is very proud of the fact that Newfound does not play to tracks, or I don't even know if they play to a click. Does Cyrus even play to a click?
No, Cyrus is the click.
That's what I thought. So
Yeah.
Ian is very proud of that. I'm curious on your take because I mean that is so rare these days. I feel like 98% of bands are playing to some sort of track or at minimum clicks. What's your take on that?
I have actually never worked for a band that plays to a click.
Really?
Yeah. So
Man.
Dropkick do not. Coheed, I don't know if they do now. I would assume not. They're monster musicians, so I would assume they do not. They did not when I worked for them. Any of the other bands, they've never played to a click. So I am kind of on the fence. I don't dislike it when bands do, but I also kind of like the push and pull of no click. But even with Newfound, like Understatement as an example, would never work with a click because I think I forget the exact tempo, but the intro and then the first verse are different tempos. It goes down, I think, 1 BPM. So for them, a click track would just never work. It would feel really weird, and it would never. And the other thing too is, um, they are just now getting on in ears. So even Chad still doesn't wear in ears. He's always had monitors. That's his preference. That's what gives him a really good show. So the argument is Cyrus could be on a click by himself, but no, Cyrus is the click.
Yeah, that's pretty badass, man. Like that's fucking punk rock when I think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Metronomes are afraid of Cyrus Beluki.
Cyrus is a beast.
He
Like just
he really is.
he is.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with clicks. I think tracks, depending on how they're used, I get it. If you're playing an arena and you need to fill like a keyboard spot or a harmony or something, like I get it. I understand why bands do it to fulfill their sound, but at the same time, it is kind of weird, especially if there's a part playing on stage and like the band's just standing there. Like it's kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah, but I think, well, first of all, if you have backing tracks, you obviously have to have a click.
Yeah.
But I think there are different examples. So it's pretty obvious that Blink have a lot of tracks live. Nothing horrific, but it's
Yeah.
pretty clear they have them. But then like Offspring, I saw them at was it When We Were Young? They had just additional musicians, or even like Green Day.
Yeah.
They had I forget his name, but that other guitar player they've had for 20 plus years. They always have additional musicians. I think I kind of like that more. So I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily hating on tracks. Um, I think for smaller bands that can't afford auxiliary musicians, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you want to get your show across and you can't afford to have a keyboard player or two and then like a percussionist or whatever else, I think that makes a lot of sense. But with Newfound, like I trigger like the intro, the samples in between. So like when you heard the sample for like Part of Your World, I'm triggering all that. All the bass drops are me live, so those aren't pre-programmed. And then a little bit of keys, like whoever is playing auxiliary guitar, they are also playing keys. But if they're like harmonies or a second part or like a counter melody, I'll play those. So there are different ways you can do it. Yeah, and I don't hate on tracks, but I think it's fun when everything is totally live. Feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, different element to it for sure. As far as Newfound goes, what's your favorite album and song? Just curious.
So favorite song is easy. It's Connect the Dots. It's a
Okay.
really deep cut.
Yeah.
It's on the live record. It's a studio recording, but it's fucking awesome. So Connect the Dots. And a couple of years for Sticks and Stones 20 year, Chad put it into the set list.
Hmm.
But it's not a lot of people know it, so it didn't survive too long. But I got to hear it a few times. It's so Connect the Dots, hands down my favorite song. Favorite album is really tricky. So I try, when I answer this question, I always have to leave self-titled and Sticks and Stones out of it. So peel those two back and leave them as the masterpieces they are. I was
Hmm.
a teenager. They're perfect. Outside of that, probably Radio Surgery.
Okay.
Dude, it starts strong and the whole record is awesome. So I really genuinely like a lot across the catalog. And maybe that's a little biased. But yeah, Radio Surgery, fucking opening riff starts and that record just kicks off. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think mine outside of self-titled and Sticks and Stones would be Forever and Ever Times Infinity.
Yeah.
Like that album rips, man.
Yeah. That one's awesome too. The guitar tones on that too are just absolutely ripping.
Yeah, that's killer album. Let's transition to some Blink talk. One of my favorite things to blab about, of course. When did you become a Blink fan?
So I was late hopping on this train too. Is when Damn It first hit MTV. That's what
Okay.
did it for me. And I wanted to buy Dude Ranch on cassette. My parents wouldn't let me because they're like, oh, you're going to wear it out. You got to wait until you can afford the CD. But that's when I first found Blink. So I was, teenager, obviously, but that's what kicked it off for me.
Were they, I mean, obviously they're blowing up right after that. Enema, Takeoff. Are you a huge fan of theirs at that point? Were they a big
Ridiculous.
inspiration?
Oh, ridiculous. Yeah, yeah, just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay.
Around that time when I was like 16, 17, I was playing in a three-piece pop punk band with two singers and not like playing Blink covers, but still you're like, they're every record was just an absolute home run and they were a lot of fun and they were obviously huge at that time. So yeah, huge inspiration. And I always wish like I'll do some of my own music and stuff on the side, like outside of that metal band, but I always wish I could have voices as good as theirs. So it's always like everything about that, they were hands down by far the favorite, no contest for so many years. And I still like hold them on this ridiculous pedestal. So, meeting them as humans is one thing. I had the opportunity to meet Mark once. And he was sweet and it was cool, whatever. And you try not to punish anyone. But like, yeah, musically you hold it up on such a pedestal. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, man. You look at especially that stretch there between Enema, Toy Page, and then
Dude.
Untitled, like Jesus.
Yeah,
People
and
are
like
still trying to replicate that. Here's the thing, people are trying to replicate Enema for 25 fucking years and still
yeah.
failing. Untitled, I don't even think anybody's tried. Like you can't.
Dude, I remember, my friends and I that I played in bands with, they started, home recording early 2000s, maybe no, late 90s and then in the early 2000s. The amount of time that we spent in the basement trying to recreate like toy patch tones through being cool tone saves the day, like the amount of times that we spent with amps that were inferior but the best we could afford at the time was absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, and then I remember when Untitled came out, we bought it from the CD store that I worked at, and I went back to my friend Ben's parents' house, and we sat in the kitchen and we put the CD on the little Bose, like stereo thing, and we sat there and just listened to it and like analyzed the crap out of it. And remember that very vividly because I have it upstairs. I'll send you a picture of it, but I have the Untitled logo mouse pad. And then I also have like the promo poster for it as well because I worked at the record store.
Oh,
So
sick.
yeah, but yeah, to say that we were obsessed, especially with Toy Page, like everything about that is just absolutely just ridiculously awesome. So yeah, huge obsession for years.
What's your favorite album?
um So, well, I'm gonna have to say too. This is an interesting twist. So, I probably probably Toy Page. However, this is something I stand very firmly in. Disc 2 of California is non-stop bangers.
Okay.
Ridiculously disc 2 specifically. So I've had people come at me before and say, "Oh, it's not the best whatever." Disc 2, so you have to get like the deluxe version. Listen
Yep.
to disc 2. It is just awesome. Just song
Dude.
after song absolutely kills. And I'll be honest, up until this latest record, I would say like disc 2 of California is the best Blink stuff in a very long time. And like I'm gonna love everything. I'm always gonna be biased, but like for like old school Blink feels and like, dude, disc 2 of California all day. All day.
I just did an episode because I'm a huge California era fan and like love Matt Skiba. So it's weird, everybody's like, obviously you want the band to get along and you're happy Tom's back, but there's still a little part of me that's like, man, I loved that music. I just did an album or a podcast comparing the deluxe album of California to One More Time Part 2. And man, it was deluxe. I was like, Parking Lot, Misery, 6-8, like Last Train Home. These songs are fire.
Dude, there are so many that I wish made it to, the first record, whatever you want to call it, disc
Yeah.
1. And I'm drawing a blank on the song dude, Skiba has this part that is just ridiculously good. I'll have to look back. I don't know why I can't think of it.
Like Bottom of the Ocean, Long Lost
No,
Feeling,
it's well,
Wildfire.
Wildfire. Dude,
Yeah.
Wildfire is ridiculous. Everything about that song just kills. And then when they do the back and forth at the end, I felt like a teenager again. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. Wildfire is unbelievable. That could be, if Man Overboard didn't exist, Wildfire could be my favorite Blink song. Dude, I will catch a lot of hate for that. But dude, that song is awesome. Before anybody tries to come at me, listen to that song. It's so
The
good.
Underdogs Came Home. Like,
dude,
it's so good. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you what's your favorite Blink song. It sounded like it's either that or Man Overboard. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I don't even know if it's fair to answer that. I will say when I was playing in that metal band, I had to get like an ASCAP name. And my first choice, hopefully you can include this. My first choice for my publishing name was Monster Moose Stick Music, and they didn't accept that. So my second choice was Man Overboard Music, and this was before the band Man Overboard existed. So yeah, I mean, I love so many, but Man Overboard, that was another song. Like, I remember I was in high school when the live record came out, and I went to the record store and I bought it. And I had to bring, my Walkman to, for school, we were doing a volunteer event where we were like washing dishes for some charity thing. And I put the CD in my, in my CD player in my pocket and listened to that. And, the live record is awesome and hilarious and whatever else. But then Man Overboard happened and I was like, holy cow, like this is awesome.
It's
So
crazy that didn't make Enema. Jerry Finn didn't like it.
well, he was an absolute genius, but you know what? Not everybody gets it right every time.
Yeah, that's what Mark says. Like, that's probably the one time he ever messed up.
Yeah.
As far as like back in the day, it's funny amongst Blink fans, there's always one member that fans seem to relate to, or I guess gravitate towards in some capacity. Did you have one of them like that for you?
Always Mark. And then, like I mentioned, I had the opportunity to meet him once years later, and he was, sweet and kind and just, cool dude. But always Mark. Everybody, especially all the girls, love Tom. So I wasn't allowed. Like, he's probably a really nice guy too, but I wasn't allowed to like him more. I had to like Mark more. And I'm sure they're all cool dudes and whatever, but I was always rooting for Mark. Plus, I could sing in Mark's range. I could never sing in Tom's range.
That's tough to pull off.
Yeah.
Just whine as nasally as possible.
Dude, I don't have it. I blow my voice out before I get there.
When they split, were you amongst like the fan base group that's pure AVA or pure Plus 44? Did you appreciate both? Like, how did you fall when that happened?
So
the first breakup.
Yeah. So I'll say it in a nice way. I was Plus 44 all the way.
Okay.
Honestly, I didn't even get into Angels and Airwaves until later. And then there's a lot of their catalog that I really appreciate. But yeah, I was big in Plus 44.
Same here. Yeah, I was Plus 44 Life for Life. Still
one
of my favorite albums, man. Like,
great
that's
record.
An incredible album.
Yeah, I listened to it just a couple months ago. That record's awesome.
second breakup, Skiba comes into play. I'm happy to hear already that you dig at least some of the music, but how did you feel about that and that era in general?
Um, this sounds so silly as a fan because that's literally what I am. I'm just some dude. I'm a fan. I was so pissed at Tom.
Yeah.
I do like Skiba. So if he ever sees this, Matt Skiba, I'm so sorry. I have met him a couple times when I was with Newfound, and I was grouchy every time that I met him, and it had nothing to do with him. I definitely went through a period. I've never felt better than anyone by any means, but I've definitely had my grouchy times, like when I was younger. So, dear Matt Skiba, I'm so sorry. One time was on a plane to Australia, and then the other time we were in like France, and Alkaline Trio were touring over there, and I was just grouchy, fucking miserable guy. So not grouchy anymore. But no, I did. I actually, so I saw. I've only seen Blink 3, 4 times. The worst part about touring is you miss all the shows you want to see because you're on tour.
Yeah.
So I did see them with Skiba. Um, I don't remember what tour, what cycle it was, but they were great, and I loved a lot of the stuff that Skiba did. So I'm pretty across the board Skiba fan. I mean, I love Alkaline Trio; they're ridiculously good. But yeah, I'm a fan across the board. We're all happy. Everything is good. I would love, it would never happen. I would love for them to do a 4-piece for like a
Yeah.
tour or for whatever, dude. Because two guitars would be cool. Like I get the tracks and that's fine, no hate. But like to have him and then just jump back and forth with songs, it'd be ridiculous. That being said, like, they played a couple songs. Was it the One More Time, the first tour back, One More Time?
Well, yeah, just that kind of
Yeah,
reunion tour
whatever.
with
Yeah,
Tom. Yep.
yeah. I paid $900 for a ticket.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and I went to Toronto. Yeah, no, I needed to be there. It was not up for discussion. Needed to be there. And they killed it. And Tom sang one of Skiba's songs, and it was good. It was really
Yeah.
good. So I'd love to see a 4-piece. That'd be sick. Even just
It,
like, a couple things here and there. It'd be so much fun.
even for just like a Chicago show or something,
Right.
like to have Skiba join them on stage, and I mean
Dude,
it would work, man. Like he could sing his songs, he could play all the backup rhythm guitar.
it'd be
Be
so awesome.
sick.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Tom's return, a couple years ago, is that something that caught you by surprise? Were you stoked for it? Like how'd you feel about it?
It didn't catch me by surprise, unfortunately, just because of the world that I live in, But I guess, like as Scott Stapp would say, with arms wide open, he's welcome back. And I mean, the One More Time record is awesome. It's
Yeah.
ridiculously good. So, no, all good things. I actually bought like 4 copies of the vinyl. I had to get the standard version, then I had to get Mark's version, Tom's version, and Travis's version. I've never opened any of them. But I had to, and I'm not even like I collect vinyl the way I collect picks. Like I accidentally end up with some and it's pretty cool to have, but I don't like lose sleep over trying to get them. But no, I love that he's back and the show was fucking killer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think everything is warm and fuzzy and good.
Yeah, it really did feel super genuine to me. Like to see him back on stage, like everybody seems happy, going in the right direction as far as like everybody's all in on Blink right now. So it was pretty special. The album in and of itself, I mean, was that the sounds you were expecting out of these three getting back together, or how'd you like it?
I love that record. I personally, this is one of my boomer traits. I do not like singles. So I heard the very first single, that came out months before everything else. All the other singles they released coming up to the release, I did not listen to.
Mm,
I want to start a record. I want to start at track 1 and end at the last track. But I love that record. It's awesome.
yeah. I thought it was a really good blend of just Blink in 2023 or 22, whenever they were writing it. I thought it was a good representation of like all of them artistically where they're at
Yeah.
and button heads together and coming up with rad songs.
Yeah, I mean the only criticism I have of that record, which is it's very gentle criticism, is I felt like all of Travis's tones on Toy Page and Enema, all the natural drum tones were so awesome, and these are just like crazy overproduced.
Mm,
So that's no hate, that's no shade. That record's still awesome, but it's like the drums do hit you in the face, but the songs are dude, everything about that record's awesome. But if I could dial back the drum sample slightly for my personal preference, I would do that. But otherwise, I'd leave it alone. Record's
See,
awesome.
see, and I don't have the ear for it. So when you say that, like, what is it that you're picking up on? Is it too loud in the mix? Is it compressed? Like, what is it?
Yeah, for my preference, and like, dude, I'm nobody special, but like when I get in the Jeep and turn on the car, like the drums are crazy loud, crazy in your face, and you can tell like what are samples or not. And like samples are cool, to blend them, whatever. I'm not a complete purist, but the drums are like so crazy in my face. I was like kind of whiplash.
Gotcha. You said you had met Mark. Have you had a chance to meet Tom or Travis?
I haven't. So Newfound played Montebello Rockfest a number of years ago, and they were actually in the middle of recording. I don't know if it was Resurrection. I can't remember what album it was, but so they flew in, played the show, and flew out. I got to stay. And we were just watching bands on stage, and Mark was hanging out. So I went up to him and said hello. I've seen Tom in passing, but I also don't like to punish people.
Yeah.
I'm off doing my own thing. Especially like in this world, like I don't necessarily get starstruck, and I'm sure that like artists don't appreciate when you're like all weird and giddy and like just be a dude.
Yeah.
So I haven't had the chance to meet Tom or Travis. Would love to. It'd be a lot of fun, just to say hello. But yeah, Mark was just cool. I asked him for a couple picks for Ian because that's the other thing. When you work for Ian Grushka, you've always got to be on Plectrum Patrol. If you play a festival, you have to go up to every guitar tech or every band member and get some pleckies for King Dula. So it was like, hey, Mark, my name is Brian. I work for Ian Grushka, and he really needs some picks for his collection. But yeah, he was nice, but outside of that, no interactions. I did send Mark a letter. I sent him a letter asking him to sing on a record that I did a few years ago. And then he announced he had cancer. So hopefully my letter isn't the thing that gave him cancer. But
Hopefully
yeah,
not.
yeah. So, but he's better now. So that's really good.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about, I guess, boundaries and kind of meeting people and being on your side of it. And you even just mentioned, like, sometimes you're working and can be grouchy and you maybe don't want people yelling at you for picks or set list or whatever. Can you talk about that just a little bit, as far as these are people, I know they're playing a gig, but what's cool, what's not when it comes to fans walking up to you trying to get a picture? Like, how do you think about that stuff?
It will forever be weird to me when someone yells out my name because that I can't even wrap my head around that. So like I'll have people in the crowd yell out my first name and I have no clue. Um, I'm completely in shock. Sometimes I don't even recognize it. I mean, you got to be cool. Like here's the thing: if somebody comes up and they're like, "Hey, can I please have a set list? Can I please have a pick?" All day long. If I have them all day long, but it's like those people who like get aggressive or get shitty, or like the people that can't read the room and stick around too long. That's the more like I don't know. That's about the only time where they're like, okay, cool, have a good day.
Yeah.
But everybody's pretty respectful. I mean, we don't tend to get aggressive people. Um, and yeah, I mean, so I guess my point is too is like, if we're in catering and I see somebody I really want to meet and they're sitting there having a conversation and eating, there is 150% chance I'm not going to say anything
Yeah.
whatsoever. But if we all end up in a conversation together, if we're standing in a circle and I'm, you know, uh, you know, striking up conversation there, then that's fine, at least on my side. But fans are usually pretty cool. There's
Yeah.
rarely an issue.
Yeah, I'm always just of the opinion it's like, be respectful, read the room. Like, I'm
Yeah.
far past the age of like trying to hang out by the bus. There's always debate about kind of meet and greets and how genuine it is. And my take on it is I would much rather pay for a guaranteed experience, even if it's awkward. At least like it's awkward for the band too. I mean, that's the time where that can happen. You can get your guaranteed picture, your guaranteed autograph. You're helping the band most of the time, from a payment perspective. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, I would say with meet and greets, I don't deal with that side of it, so I don't know the inner workings, but with meet and greets, I would expect that ticket price you pay for it goes directly to the band, as
Yeah.
opposed to a promoter getting a cut and then the venue getting a cut and all this other stuff. I think those are cool. I have done a few of those just as like a dude before. So they're cool, especially like, when my kids want to, meet somebody, that's always fun. But yeah, no, I agree. It's just, again, it's just about being mellow. Like, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, we're all just people, and like, yeah, cool. Some are like really famous, but you're either going to be just a cool dude. Like, think about it, even like, so I don't know this to be fact, but based on how I see Mark carry himself, do you think he would rather have somebody come up and say, "Hi, my name's Brian. Mark, I'm a really big fan. It's super nice to meet you. Like, thank you. Have a great day. Can I get a picture?" He probably likes that a whole lot more than like, "Oh my God, hey, Mark, I'm just," like
For
losing your
sure.
composure, or like holding him on some crazy pedestal. So, just as an example, just be, dude, mellow, loosey goosey, chill, and it's good.
Yeah, it's all good. You mentioned it a little bit ago, a couple years ago, you put out an album, Brian and the Wards, and this album was called The Record No One Has Been Waiting For. How did
Yeah.
this come together? I'm repping it. I got a sticker behind me.
Oh
I
yeah.
listened to it in full this morning. Like, it's a rad punk album, dude. Ian plays bass on the whole thing. Like, what can you tell us about this?
Um, God, I don't want to bring down the conversation. It was a couple years of a lot of really, really bad times and bad stuff. So it was, my mom passing away. It was a really important, specific relationship ending. It was really drawn out and messy, and a lot of really bad times. So it was, I guess, like when you imagine hitting the bottom and then hitting the bottom like a second time. And it was just after that point of hitting it the second time, just a little bit lower. So ironically, I can only be creative when I'm like really depressed. And I'm usually not, but it's something that I've been talking about for many years. Like before all that stuff kind of kicked it off, for years and years, I was like, how much fun would it be to make a record with all my friends? And this was before everybody was doing features on every single record. And then it was like, okay, shit, well, everybody's done this 1,000 times, but it was still something fun to do. So I wrote the first song after my mom died, and Ian heard it, and he's like, "Man, I really wish you said something to me. I would have played bass on it." And it was just like I did like the demo, and it was a typical one of those. I wrote it in 14 hours, and I had a buddy of mine mix it, and another one just did artwork really quick and pushed it out. And that was kind of the beginning. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going to do a full record. If you want to do it, that'd be awesome." And then it was just getting different friends on it. So I took some friends that, that tour and are professional musicians. So Jack from Bayside is on it. Arun from Saves the Day is on it. And then I got a bunch of my friends that I grew up with. So I think everybody that sang on it is all like guys that I played in bands with and grew up with and everything else. And then, I had a good friend of mine play drums, and it was just getting a bunch of friends together and making the record. I could have released it with the superior drummer drums and like all of my vocals and my harmonies and all that, but as I had other people contribute to it, it was a lot of fun. And people change stuff, and I was super uncomfortable with like, "Oh,
Mm.
well, this drum fill should be this instead," and I hated it, and then ended up loving it. Like, it was great. So my friend Josh, he's an awesome drummer. He does audio stuff as well. He used to be a drum tech for a little as well before he had kids. So he came in, and it was awesome to have somebody who was willing to not only play drums, but then he would take those tracks and he would do all the edits for me, because
Mm.
everything was, it was even down to the mix and the master was a friend of mine. And then the album artwork was done by a friend of mine who I met through Ian. This dude, Joe, he's drawn by Joe Art, and he does a lot of Ian's picks. He did that album artwork. He does just awesome stuff, really cool stuff. So the whole theme of that was, my life just imploded twice, really, really bad, really, really, really bad fallout. So I'm going to do something fun with all my friends. And that's what it was.
Mm. Isn't that crazy how music seems to pour out of folks like you had mentioned earlier, when you're super depressed or at an all-time low, like I think back to some of the stuff I had written, and it always comes from like pain or a breakup. And I even think about, I heard somebody talk about with bands, a lot of times their debut album is so good because it's like a lifelong of pain and experiences. And then you get that. And then if they blow up, the follow up, like they're living an easier life or a better life. It happens across even like comedians, and just when there's no struggle, it's hard to come up with stuff. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah, it's yeah. That I guess there's no better way to say, that record, like I'd been teasing it and whatever, but when I named it the record no one has been waiting for, like it's obviously a little tongue in cheek, it's funny, but it was also true. But yeah, it's just born from pain, I suppose.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, there has to be some no effects influence in you, because when I listen to this thing, man, it is like that little bit of Offspring, a little bit of Bad Religion, like it's
Yeah.
punk. I was impressed, dude. It's rad.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, well, so going back to the I could never sing like Tom or Mark. I also listened to a ton of skate punk. I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love NoFX. I love NoFX. They're another one that like I just I've met them a few times. They've been around with Newfound so many times. We've played festivals with them and everything else. I met a few times. They're cool enough. I don't punish them, but like I hold them on this ridiculously high pedestal. It's almost unfair.
Mm.
Like anytime I see them, they could never be good enough. And that's not to throw shade. Like they were awesome. Every time I saw them, but like I hold them so ridiculously high. But the other thing too is like not that I want to mimic anyone, but like I hear Fatty and I'm like, okay, like I also can't sing. So like a little bit of a yell, but with some notes, like I can do this and I can harmonize and write parts. So yeah, I would say all of those bands are a really good call out. And it's interesting too to hear like different people hear the record and we'll hear, different influences of different things, but definitely heavy no effects. Not so much like trying to jock their style, but just so much of that in my everyday life. The other thing too, it's always funny when people talk about this record. I am usually very proud of how creative I can be with delivering a topic, but this record is so raw. Like some people will be like, "Oh, I love the record and it's so whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was a miserable time in my life and I, and they're like, "Oh, I had no idea." But dude, when you read those lyrics, like I didn't hide anything.
Yeah.
And it's not to like the very last line of the first song is here's my dirty laundry, go on, enjoy the show, whatever the hell it was. It was, I'm not trying to like put all my stuff out there and be like, oh, boohoo, woe is me. But like, there's no, yeah, it's very, very direct delivery for sure.
Yeah, I dug it, man. There's two songs that I really, really liked a lot. One was New Reality and Abort Missionary. Like those are the two that, especially that Abort Missionary, it just like keeps
Yeah.
replaying in my head. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's cool, but especially on the podcast version, I'd love to plug one of those in at the end. Do you think we can pull that off?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I can send
MP
you whatever you need, but yeah.
Yeah, either way, either one of those I'm cool with, whichever one you'd prefer, and I'll pop it in at the end of the podcast. If I do it on YouTube, YouTube like flags it instantly and gives my channel a strike, which sucks, but I'll pop it in on the Apple and Spotify version.
Dude, I got flagged for posting that record. Seriously.
That reminds me of when like Mark streams on Twitch and he
Yeah.
literally can't play Blink-182.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least like I don't know how they are set up the last few years, but you could make the argument that they don't own their first few records.
True that.
But I did everything. I mean, I did everything for that record. The whole record cost me like $1,500 to make, like something
Dang.
maybe less. I'd have to go back and do the math. It's probably less than that because I do a lot. I mean, outside of this, I've been using Pro Tools for 100 years and I have a studio space and whatever else. So I, for that record, I think I spent 2.5 weeks of 8-hour days dialing in a guitar tone.
Mm.
Just totally obsessed. But that was, part of that whole process too, kind of coming back up digging myself out, or lifting myself out of that ditch. But yeah, I got flagged for posting. It was like some country that honestly I wasn't even familiar with, but and I was like, okay, well, the band name is kind of like my name, and I'm the only guy, so I think this is me. And then it got resolved.
Ah, that's crazy. Well, next album you put together, let me get like a vocal line in there or something. We'll link up
Please.
on a song.
Yeah, no, I have. So it's funny. Right after I released the record, Jordan pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey, why didn't you ask me to sing on it?" And I was like,
Oh,
"Dude, well, he's at the top of my list, but I also don't want to like be too heavy with bothering everybody." So
yeah.
I have some stuff I need to like. Our touring schedule next year is going to probably be pretty heavy. So maybe I'll get some songs done. I hope to. But Jordan's on my list. My dear friend Ken, who played guitar on Unearth, um, his voice, dude, his clean vocals are unbelievable. Like
Mm.
really awesome. So he's on my list. I have some other friends that I want to play some more solos. And I think to your point of like the no effects feel, the solo that Jack O'Shea from Bayside played on the first song totally sets that up. And
I
I
was
didn't give him a
wondering if
ton of
that was
direction.
you. I didn't know if that was you ripping these or who, because somebody's going
No,
off.
yeah. So the first song is Jack O'Shea from Bayside. New Reality, which you mentioned, that is Arun from Saves the Day. And then our friend Michael Bethencourt. He used to be a Newfound Glory tech when I first started. And now he does Jason Isbell. He's Jason Isbell's guy, but he's
Okay.
a great player too. So Jack, Arun, and Michael all got in a room together and just kind of were riffing, and they laid that out. So Arun and Michael kind of passed, or Michael does the first one, Arun does the second one. But no,
Man,
I wrote a bunch of songs, and then I begged a bunch of people who are way more talented than me to play on it, and it worked out.
that's cool, man. It just reminds me of like punk rock values of like friends supporting friends.
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome.
Two things, and I'll get you out of here. One, just advice to others. Like, kid comes up to you at a show, he wants to be a guitar tech one day. Like, what is your advice to somebody seeking that out?
Work for free and bust your balls.
Mm,
The first few Unearth tours I did, I worked for $15 a day.
wow.
I mean, I was a kid. I was, 19, 20 years old, so I could make it happen. And they weren't like taking advantage of me. I got well taken care of. We were on a bus, and there was still food and everything. Like it wasn't like slave labor by any means, but I was like, hey, I want to do this. I want to prove myself. There's my buddy Chris from New Jersey. He wanted to do the same thing and asked me this question years ago. And now, dude, he does bigger tours than I do. There's like a dude, yeah, it's like, and then my friend Pat Benson, he grew up with me. We're from a really small town in New York, and he is doing bigger. I mean, he's Trent Reznor's guy. He I forget who he's out with right now, but like, and it's everybody that just kind of went in and were just being genuine and working hard, and that's it. So it's could it be some connections? Maybe, but my connections didn't really come from anywhere crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it wasn't like I punished this huge band and they gave me a shot. It's like I played in smaller bands, and then we would just naturally kind of meet people in larger bands or national acts or whatever, and you just put yourself out there and be genuine, and just don't sweat the small stuff. I didn't do anything special. I am just a dude. But also, like, I mentioned earlier I'm straight edge, and I guess one of the things that actually worked to my benefit was because I wasn't always drunk, or wasn't like, like tooting lines or anything like that. I was definitely told by bands that they felt I was more reliable. So
Mm,
that's not to say you have to live your life any specific way, but just like I was dialed in. Here's my mission. This is what I'm doing. I did that, and then I got work.
yeah. Man, that's good advice. It seems like you just got to get out there and just fucking do it. Like
Yeah.
that's what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't be worried about like it's all networking. You can't be worried about, oh, I need to do this. Like, I need my dream job, or I need that. Like, there was no way that I was going to, you know, come from playing in that band that was, playing small clubs to just be a tech for like some huge arena band. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, you just need to get out there and do it.
Last question, but I'll tee it up a little bit. Do you collect or keep items, mementos from tour? Like, what is it hobby wise that you're interested in?
I, for years, have collected hotel room keys or
Okay.
any of the do not disturb signs that are in different languages. But the biggest thing that I'm known for is the McDonald's World Tour. So I started this it was probably 2007. And I was doing my first tour overseas with Coheed. So my first time going overseas, I flew over by myself. We were in the UK, and their merch guy Kenny and I didn't really like the food so much. Like, it was catered, but it just wasn't good. So we started to get McDonald's everywhere, and this is what kicked off the McDonald's World Tour. So every country, every city. So that's truly, if you want to sincerely know, that's what I collect. Every country, every city. We are going to the UK later this year. I've had McDonald's in, I think, every city we've played in the UK, but I'll probably do it again. Always just a large Big Mac meal and then a local delicacy. Usually just like a unique McFlurry. But so that's it. I McDonald's World Tour, collector of other stuff. I have all my laminates still. We used to have tour books. Those don't happen anymore because Master Tour took over. But I still keep all my laminates. I won't get rid of them for anything. So I have a big box of those upstairs. But that's probably about. And then picks, because
Okay.
I have Ian's picks.
I feel like I need to change this question a little bit this season. I think it's a tad too morbid with actual fires taking place in California. But the way that I end the podcast is I ask my guest in the past, house is on fire, family safe, pets are safe. You can grab one item to protect forever. What are you grabbing and why? I think I'm going to switch that up a little bit. Let's do this. There's a zombie apocalypse. Let's go more morbid. There's a bus coming out front. It's going to pick you and your family and your pets. They're safe. There's space for one item to grab. What are you grabbing and why?
Ooh, that is really tough.
It is.
That is really tough.
And for me, like, I'm a collector, as you can see behind me. So to
Yeah.
me, it's like probably my signed Take Off Your Pants and Jacket vinyl, like favorite album. Took me forever to get it signed by all three, something like that. But I've also had people like Darren Doan, director. He directed Josie, M&M's, and Damn It. He caught me off guard. He said he would grab a photograph that was him, his son, and his dad. Them three on a photo, and I think it's the only photo he has of three generations. And I was like, oh shit, that's a lot deeper than my Toy Page vinyl.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. And I actually have a 4 generations picture, but it's digital. I don't think I ever printed it. So I guess the one thing I could replace any guitar. I build them as well. So like I built that one and I have some others. So I could always rebuild a guitar. I could always buy another guitar. The only thing that I don't think I could replace is this. I think I've shown you this before. This was a gift from Ian, but how crazy of a deep cut is that?
I've never seen that. He's never shown me
really?
that.
Oh, no, he gave this to me like 15 years ago.
I can tell by the autographs. That's like 95, 96, like early.
Easy. You could never, ever replace that, ever. So there are things that I would love to take, but I think that's the only thing that I would grab.
Yeah, stuff like that has a timestamp on it. That's part of why I like autographs. Is like it's a timestamp in time of that day and that memory. Like that is irreplaceable.
I'm not even a huge autograph person, but this is so cool. Like to have Scott's on there,
Yeah.
And just to have something. So there's a lot of stuff I'd probably love to grab. If they were the slow zombies, I'd grab a few other things. But if they're the fast zombies, I'll just get this and get out. It's fine.
Love it. Brian, anything you want to say to the listeners or Newfound Glory fans?
Thanks for letting me do this. I mean, thanks for Newfound for calling me back, and thanks for you for having me. No, I'm excited to chop it up and just kind of chat about all of this stuff. It's a lot of fun. So it's always cool to just talk about something different.
Yeah, dude, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed it. He is at X Brian Ward X on the IG. Check out the album. I'll pop in one of those songs here. Which one you want to play? Which one you want to tee up?
I'm gonna let you pick. I'll give you both. I'm gonna let you pick which song you want.
I'll go with Abort Missionary just because that chorus is stuck in my head. We'll play
Sounds
it here.
good.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.